I just wanted to come on and really hop on real quick today and just have a conversation of what are some of the foundational things that help create scalable brands. So it's going to be very light. It's going to be very, very simple. Nothing so heavy. No, nothing tactical. As you're coming in, say hello. Hey, paper script. Hey, Miss Password. So it's interesting how for me it's hard to know who's behind the brand because I end up seeing your company name. So I'd love for you guys to say hello as you're joining in. And if I don't uh, call you out by your name, it's just because I cannot see that. I'm just seeing your company name. So today I wanted to talk about what is the one thing that creates scalable brands, right? This is going to be very simple. It's going to cause you to think a lot because I often see or find ourselves leaning heavily into strategy sometimes. Hey, Kali. Okay. I often see many of us as we're continuing to grow our businesses and scaling, looking for the next best tactic or looking for the next best strategy. But I've been there, I've done that, but I actually discovered that's not the right thing sometimes because every time we end up getting a new strategy, we end up overwhelming ourselves and putting ourselves in situations where we feel like we need to know more. And whenever we feel like we need to know more, we get into paralysis because it's like one more thing to do, and I'm the only one in my company doing it. So what I want to talk about today are just two things. There's one primary one, but then the first one is let's first of all learn to celebrate ourselves. Why do I say that? Because when it's if you're a high achiever, if you're a high performer, if you're a person who's very good at getting things done, is a driver, it's so easy for us to sort of downplay all the achievements we've had. Whenever we make a win, oftentimes we want another win because we don't even sit and take time to just breathe. And one thing that blocks us from receiving the next win is you're not giving yourself time to be in the energy of celebrating and winning. And so when you're not in the energy of celebrating and winning, how can you be in the space of getting more and receiving? And I say this because if you've been conditioned every single time to if you win, you're always finding yourself coming back down. I want you to now take time and pause and look at all the successes you've had so far and stay in that energy of winning and documenting your success so that whenever you get into a deep, and the deeps often come when we're getting into next level, you have a repository bank that has good things for you. This is one thing that we deny ourselves, especially when we're growing and growing super fast. And when we don't do this, we find mistakes that are within our business and we focus on the mistakes and the problems that are needed to be fixed instead of actually focusing on, hey, I did this last month. I did this the month before. I'm already good at getting new clients. Things are slow for me now for a reason versus beating yourself up. Because staying in that energy of winning, staying in that energy of celebrating is pretty much how you create another win. It's very hard to create another win when you're not in that excitement, when you're resenting, when you're feeling defeated. That is very hard. Why? Because many times before we start delegating, before we start hiring teams, we're doing everything. And our biggest currency is our energy. So if there's one piece of advice I would give anyone right now who's feeling like, hey, I need the next thing. And I know this is happening because, first of all, outside of what's happening in the globe, just think about social media right now. It's very easy to join social media and feel like you're not doing anything, feel like you're not even celebrating, feel like nothing you do is changing. And many times, if that's what we're receiving and consuming every single time, it's hard for us to create. And as entrepreneurs, we are creatives. And in order to be in the space of creating, we have to be in that energy of constantly winning. We also have to be in that energy of celebrating every single achievement we want so that we can get closer to the next thing that we want to do. The second thing, that this is actually the fundamental thing that I really wanted us to talk about, is many of us focus on differentiating ourselves against competitors. But one thing I want you to understand that really will drive the growth of your brand is being very distinct. Just think about distinction within your brand right now. What are you doing to create distinction? How are you showing up to create distinction? What messaging are you putting out there to create distinction? How are you treating your customers to create distinction? How are you treating your best customers to create distinction? How are you treating your one team member, your second team member to create distinction? Because distinction is the number one foundational element that we need to have if you want to create a scalable brand. And when it comes to distinction, what I'm referencing when it comes to distinction is, what are the things you can do within your power to create that within your brand? What is it that you can do within your power to create that distinction? That distinction is what also creates the community I talk about, and it's also what allows you to build a brand obsession. When you evaluate your marketing right now, is your marketing very plain, very vanilla? Are you trying to be different? If you're trying to be different, what that tells me is you've relinquished your own power inside. Why? Because you're trying to look at what somebody else is doing, what your top industry person is doing, and trying to be different. I want you to literally assume there was no competition. Like sometimes, let me tell you things, my friend. Sometimes you have to live in oblivion. Like sometimes you just have to live in oblivion and be obsessed with what you're trying to create. Be obsessed with your results. Be obsessed with your messaging, whether somebody gets it right now or doesn't get it. Be obsessed with your marketing. Be obsessed with showing up into the world based on who you truly are. Because it's easy for us to look at outside influence and mimic that. One of the biggest thing for me that right now I'm really trying to wrap my head around is this whole concept of dancing on reels. No offense to anyone who's dancing on reels, but that's not me. That's not how I show. Let me tell you, even if you find me and we're having happy hour, I'm not the first person who will jump onto the dance floor. That's not me. And so just because everyone else is doing it, I'm asking myself, do I really need to do it? How can I create distinction within my brand? And that's why I'm challenging you guys to think about it. Well, how can you create distinction within all the facets of your business? If it's your messaging, is it time for you to start creating messaging that's unsaid? Is it time for you to create messaging that's very polarizing, that brings out your perspective? When it comes to your customers, is it time to now shower them with so much love, take care of them, even if they're just 3 or 4 right now? What is it that you can do with what you have right now? Because at the end of the day, we have to remember, this is a momentum game. This is a momentum game. And if you can't do something at a small scale level, it's going to be very hard to do it on a larger scale. And the reason why I'm saying being distinct is that it puts us in a place where we're literally taking radical responsibility for all our results. We're taking radical responsibility for everything we are creating. Why do I say this? Because if you blame external factors, you blame, hey, I don't have a big audience. Hey, I don't have a marketing budget. Hey, I just don't have a team. You've literally shifted the blame to someone else, meaning you've relinquished your own power. And anytime you find yourself blaming, it's hard for you to come back and do what's required for you to create the result. Because when you shift to blame, it means you have no power. But at the end of the day, you built your business. You came up with the idea. You know the problem that you're solving. You know how to use the product. You know what your customer needs to do in order to use the product. Why are you stepping away from that? You even know how to market the product the right way. How do I know you know that? You're the creator, you're the founder, you've sold the products to a few people, to multiple people. You've received enough objections. Because you've received enough objections, that is content for you that could come up as frequently asked questions. And if you're just saying, I don't have a marketing agency to do this, honey, how is a marketing agency going to translate what you know fundamentally needs to happen without you communicating it? That is why at the end of the day, oh my God, it looks like poor connection. Okay, it looks I'm back. That is why at the end of the day, taking radical responsibility for your result is number one thing that would lead to distinction. We cannot live in blame. And if blame is showing up, you have to ask yourself, what are some of the things that I'm fearful of? Because what happens is we have an idea. This is pretty much the path. We have this idea, grand idea. Let's say I'm going to use where I see a lot of people getting stuck is when it comes to marketing and pretty much when it comes to setting up the infrastructure. Because when it comes to setting up the infrastructure to scaling, it pretty much means you're pivoting. And if you're pivoting, you have to let go of the old to create room for the new. So letting things of a lower nature go in order to create space for things of a higher nature. And so now we're talking about pivoting because you've done everything before on your own. Solopreneur, done everything. You're the customer representative. You're the marketer. You're the sales. You're the fulfillment person. You're everything in your business. And now you've been put in this situation where I have to pivot and stop doing what I was doing in order to go up to next level. Resistance will show up. Why? You yourself, you do not have a frame of reference of what actually scaling looks like, or what it looks like to build a team, what it looks like to run a business that produces over 5,000 orders per month or 10,000 orders per month. This is where now you fear success comes in. You get triggered. And whenever that fear gets triggered to you, what happens is now we begin to rationalize, LIES, rationalize why it would not happen. Because this is what happens. Many people think that they need to have a huge influx of leads first in order for them to set up the infrastructure. I'm here to tell you it's the inverse. Because if you ramp up your marketing and your back-end operational infrastructure isn't dialed in, what's going to happen is that the marketing is literally going to amplify the problems that you have on the back end, which would eventually lead you to getting tired, getting frustrated, things falling through the cracks. Then all of a sudden, people want the product, they want to return their orders, everybody is complaining. When in reality, it would be, Kenny, I need to slow down to speed up. And what does slowing down to speed up look like? Setting the infrastructure of my business. However, because there's a fear of success that has been triggered, you're going to rationalize that actually, I don't need that right now. I need more sales. I need more customers. I need more orders. And when you rationalize, you move into blame. When you move into blame, you've literally relinquished your power. And when you relinquish your power, you're constantly in that stuck cycle. So if you're finding yourself being stuck, I want you to ask yourself, what are you blaming? What are you blaming right now? Are you blaming your mentor, your coach? Are you blaming your team member? Are you blaming your marketing? Are you blaming your branding? Are you blaming your messaging? What are you blaming? Because whatever you're blaming is the one thing that you need to actually go and sit with and be comfortable working on it. It has nothing to do with that. If you're blaming your messaging being the issue or the agency you've hired not producing the results that you want, why can't you go and do it yourself? At the end of the day, you're the one who knows it. You're the one who knows it. And that's why I want you to sit down and really ask yourself, what is it that you're blaming? Because whenever you're blaming, you're playing victim. And I can tell you for a fact, you cannot create a scalable brand when you're constantly playing victim. It is so hard. It's so hard to show up. It is so hard to do the things that are required in order to create the scalable brand if you're blaming yourself. And this is the thing that often happens. It's whenever we blame factors, it means that we're actually focusing on what we don't want. Because your energy is focused on, I don't want this message. I don't want this infrastructure. I don't want this. And unfortunately, you put yourself in a situation where you're doubting. You put yourself in a situation where you've lacked confidence. You've put yourself in a situation where you're just defeated and resenting your business. And what's going to happen is that your business is going to mirror back the things that you're actually doubting. Let's say you're doubting a pricing, or you've realized, hey, for me, in order for me to scale, I need to change my pricing architecture. I need to have cash flow in my business. So if you need cash flow in your business, two things. It's either a pricing issue. Second thing, expenses. Now you figure, okay, I need to increase my price. I cannot keep charging this. The first thing you say, nobody's going to pay that. Do you know what's eventually going to happen? You're going to get people who will tell you that their product is very expensive. Why? Because first of all, you've not sold on yourself why you need to change that price, why you need to change the price. But secondly, it's because you fundamentally you're using your customers as the reason as to why they're not buying. But here's what I want to challenge you on. Have you taken the step forward to think about, how can I mitigate this price objection? Have you thought about, what can I put out in front of my audience to address that price objection before it even happens? And this is why I'm doing this, is because I don't want any of you to sit in blame. I do not want any of you to sit in blame, because every time you sit in blame, you're losing money. There is a cost associated when you relinquish your power. And that cost is high because you're the CEO, you're the founder, you know what needs to be done, you know what is right. If you sit, slow down, breathe, you know what is usually right for your business. And that's why I really want us to think about, if something happens, the first question I want you to ask yourself is, why did I create this experience? Why did this experience happen? What is it in my way of being that's made me create this experience? If you ask that question, you're going to find the answer. And when you find the answer, you're going to find the solution, or you're going to go and seek somebody who's going to give you the solution to the right problem, versus coming and saying, nobody's buying into my price. My marketing isn't sticking. Okay, if your marketing isn't sticking, are you putting different messaging, or are you putting distinct? What is it that makes you unique? What is it about your planners that I need to know? What is it about your hair accessory that I need to know? What is it about your fashion clothing that I need to know? And if it doesn't have to do with your product itself, what is it that I need to know that pushed you to start your business? Because at the end of the day, that's a content that converts. And that's even why we're going to get to a point, and I'm going to leave this on my platform because I know it's actually going to happen. We're going to get to a point where content that's very convincing, that is deep with beliefs, with perspective, is what's actually going to stick. Very plain content that doesn't have a deeper why, that doesn't have any emotional or sentimental value, is going to be very hard. Why? Because human behavior has changed. And what triggered the change exponentially was COVID. People are looking for more connection. People are looking for more personalization. People are looking to feel like they're a part of something bigger than what is being sold. And I want you to know that that is available to you as product-based business owners. We don't think that way. But I want you to know, even when I was working in corporate, literally I was being paid to try and humanize a product, a potato chip. Like, just think about it. A potato chip that's just deep fried in oil and salt. My job was to humanize it. And if I can give you a great example, is just think about Tostitos. Just think about that brand. Think about the creative behind that brand. It's been marketed as the potato chip that you think about when you're in a social setting. It's funny, even when I'm hosting, I'm always like, we need tortilla chips and salsa. Like, literally. And at the end of the day, you go to a store, you pick out Tostitos. Why? Because they've humanized just a regular potato chip to represent something bigger than what it actually is. And so that is what I want you to think about, if you haven't done that when it comes to your marketing. Because the reason I'm speaking a lot about marketing and infrastructure is because I know those are the two things that hold people back. It's usually the inverse. People are very good at the marketing, so the infrastructure is not set in place, or the infrastructure is very good but the marketing is not solid. And so it ends, eventually CEOs blame the opposite thing. Those who think have a marketing issue actually have an infrastructure issue. Those who think that they have an infrastructure issue actually have a marketing issue. And the thing is, I want you to know that marketing is not tough. What marketing is all about is picking up your truth and communicating what your audience is seeking. Just if you sit down, and I'm responding to the question here when it comes to why marketing is tough. For you to address that concept of marketing, I just want you to journal, like literally just journal and spend time understanding the person you want to buy from you. You need to know what are their fears. You need to know what are their frustrations. You need to know what are their wants. You need to know what are their desires. And then you need to know what is it that's holding them back from taking action. That is what you need to put out there. That's it. And if you feel like your messaging is dialed in, now think about, if something is holding you back from scaling, I want you to think about your infrastructure. Great question, Melissa. I'm going to answer your question. When it comes to your infrastructure, I want you to think about it from this perspective. Do you or your team member have a repeatable system that can sell without you being there? Or are you doing everything? Are you reacting to what's showing up? Secondly, when it comes to the infrastructure, how have you thought about your production capacity? Do you know your high seasons? Do you know your low seasons? And do you know when to actually order? Inventory management is one thing that many of us neglect because we focus a lot on marketing. Third, cash flow. Have you thought about your cash flow? First of all, do you even have the right pricing architecture? Meaning, do you have enough left over? If you don't have enough left over, we need to revise your pricing in the sense that it can stand multiple channels. Do you have a different pricing strategy for wholesale? Do you have a different pricing strategy for home channels? Do you have a different pricing strategy for retail? And I say this because I literally had a conversation with a potential client on Monday this week. And at the end, on the back end, I ended up crying because she was doing everything. But the initial pricing strategy, initial pricing architecture for her wasn't scalable when she got the opportunity to get into retail. She got the opportunity to get into retail, and mind you, can ain't even breaking even. Why? Because the pricing she had before could not withstand the different channels. And that's why I say, if you're having a cash flow issue, go and revise your pricing. The fourth thing when it comes to scaling, I talked about cash flow, production, inventory, and a repeatable sales system. Okay, so I talked about the four of them. Those are the four things that I want you to go and look at. Then from a team perspective, if you're thinking about hiring a person, I want you to think about hiring the person that would come and offset one of the biggest bottlenecks in your business. If your biggest bottlenecks in your business is customer service or order or the backend, get that. Because once that starts running like a well-oiled machine, then it's now time for you to now go and hire. Sorry about that. It's time for you to go and hire somebody that can help you with marketing. I say this because scaling is, many people think marketing will solve their scalability issues, but unfortunately that's not. It actually amplifies the broken parts in your business. So go and look at infrastructure. If you're having an infrastructure issue, look at the four things I talked about. If you're having a marketing and a messaging issue, just look at your customers and actually ask yourself, what is it that you're holding back from and that you're not saying in your marketing? Because if you're holding back, if you're not saying the reason why you created what you created, why would somebody be magnetized to you? And now I'm going to ask this. Melissa is asking, how does one create a community from loyal customers so that they market your service or product for you? Melissa, question I have for you is, have you implemented a referral program? You have loyal customers, which is fantastic. Have you implemented an internal referral program that incentivizes your loyal customer to bring somebody else? It could be a point system. It could be a cashback system. Just think about what is within your power right now that your business can support and that will allow your current audience to bring more people and still get an incentive. That's the number one thing. Referral marketing is one thing that whenever if you're at capacity, if you have the capacity, if you have your systems dialed in, that's one place you need to think about. And it takes one person, two people, three people, and don't do it for 30 days and then stop. Like, commit to some of these things if you know you're willing to do them for at least a year to see the result. It's a different kind of game you're playing here if you're here to build a brand. If you're here for something quick, you can run some paid ads, make your quick 3,000 a day and call it done. But if you're here to create something sustainable, something that stands the test of time, give yourself time, because you're also going to want to do it well, but evaluate every 90 days if it's working. If you started with 5 people and you told them, do you know 3 people that you can refer? Those are 15 people that you've gotten. Now, those 15 people, nurture them, take care of them, make sure that they can still bring you 3 more people, and then the cycle continues. And that's another thing I'm going to talk. I forgot to mention when it comes to scaling. When it comes to scaling now, it's identifying two to three things that you can do them and do them very well. Don't pack stuff on. You don't have the bandwidth. You really don't have. And if you feel like you want to do all of them, it's going to force you to hire a team. But hiring a team for the first 3 to 6 months is going to be an expense in your business, so you're not going to be able to get a profit or get an ROI from that. And I only want you to hire a team member that's actually going to support you and solve the problem that you currently have right now. And then Melissa asked, what's an example of a repeatable system? So I think you asked that when I was talking about marketing. An example of a repeatable system when it comes to marketing is, number one, do you have your channels where you market? So I'm going to use an example. If you're leveraging email marketing, do you know when you send your emails, how often you send them, and when you send them, how many actually convert? Have you done that over and over again to know that if I can get somebody to do this and pay them, this system will bring at least 10 grand every single month. If you can literally say this is what happens and quantify the results of that process, of that system, that's when you know you have a repeatable system. If you're trying to guesstimate and figure out, or you're testing different channels, it means you don't have a repeatable system. For me, I can give you an example of my repeatable system. Doing this is a repeatable system that I've seen work over and over and over again for my business. It may not work now, but it does work in the long run. And what do I do with this? I do this, my team takes it, edits the video, populates it in the podcast. My podcast is my evergreen asset. I tell you, I get clients over and over again from my podcast. That's a repeatable system. Whenever I have events, whenever I have conversion events, it's a repeatable system because I know what it takes, team support that's required, investment that's required, and the ROI after it. And so for you in a product-based business, when it comes to your marketing, what's your repeatable system? Have you identified that? Have you spent time to look at, if I send 4 newsletters every single month, and the thing is, sometimes you have different themes. This is a theme that converts. So if this is a theme that converts, maybe every time I send 3 emails with this specific theme, I get at least 2,000 or 3,000. That's a repeatable system. And then Zuri is saying the marketing space is overwhelming and as you don't know what to choose. Zuri, block everything. I'm giving you permission to tune out. What would the marketing space look like if you did it if you were doing it your way and there was nothing around you? Unfortunately, this is the stuff that many of us don't talk about. If you're in the inception stages of your business, you're going to have to learn how to mute everything. You don't have to follow everybody. You don't have to look at the top influencers. You don't have to look at the top brands. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who's creating what you're creating, and you're the one who's putting out that product to your ideal audience. And it's your job for you to constantly do that over and over again so that they can find you. Because this is the thing. You go and look at what your competitor is doing. That's why I talk about pricing. Don't look at your competitor pricing because A, you don't know what their audience is, and you don't even know what their pricing, their costs are. So don't look at that. Even in their marketing, that's their way of marketing. It's not your way of doing it. That's their unique proposition. That's their unique value. That's not your unique value. So the thing is, I'm giving you permission to mute out everything and just journal this out for yourself. How would my marketing look like if I did not have any external forces or external factors influencing my decision? And that's how I want all of you, anyone who's listening to me live or listening to me on the podcast, I want you to start making decisions that way. What is true for me? And I want you to trust the decision that you make. Because if you don't trust that decision, then you're going to find very many reasons not to do it, or very many reasons to blame yourself if things don't go right. Decision making is another trait that we also have to get very good at as CEOs and as business owners. It's hard, especially if you had a very different childhood upbringing. I know in the African context, children are to be seen but not heard. So honey, you could not say anything. So if you cannot say anything, then you probably haven't exercised your decision-making muscle. But that's an opportunity for you right now to start exercising it, because the power lies within you. If you take radical responsibility for all the results you create, you end up creating what you actually were supposed to create. Because this is the thing, events in our lives don't determine our outcomes. What determines our outcomes is how we respond to those events. I'm going to say that again. Events in our lives don't determine our outcomes. What determines our outcomes is how we respond to those events. What are you making things mean? What are you making things mean when somebody is not buying your product? What are you making things mean when you get a return request? What are you making things mean when you're in a very slow season of your business? What are you making things mean when you're required to pivot? What are you making things mean when you're required to invest in somebody to help you grow your brand? That's what creates what we're experiencing. And so that's today my goal is, I really wanted to inspire all of you because there's a lot going on. There's so much negativity. And because of that negativity, we find ourselves just consuming everything, consuming the news, consuming social media, consuming a lot of things. And when we're constantly consuming, we cannot create. And as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, fundamentally, your job is to create. And if your job is to create, you have to put yourself in the space and the energy of creating, whatever that looks like for you. So, because when you put yourself in that space, then you're able to take radical responsibility of everything that you create, and you know that every success lies within you. It ain't bullshit. This is not bullshit. It's actually true. The power lies inside of you, and you have to learn how to take your power back. So, okay, product launch. What's your take? Zuri, when it comes to your product launch, I don't know what you're referring to, but is it a new product? Is it an existing product? It really depends on what your marketing vehicle and your marketing channel is. Easiest way to do a product launch if you don't have a huge budget is test it out with your existing customers, have an early access option with your existing audience, and then go forward and look for a new audience once you've proved out your concept with your current customer. Because what that does for your marketing budget is that, first of all, you spend less because you're focusing on those current customers you currently have. And then secondly, outside of the spend, you're able to get real and raw feedback from people who've bought from you before to help you change or revise the new product before you take it live. One thing that big brands do very well, this is just an insider secret, a big brand will not make a product a 52-week SKU or an annual SKU if it was not a limited time offer. That's how we did it. We always tested with limited time offers. If you think about a brand, for those in the US, Lay's, many people ask me, how comes this flavor isn't there anymore, or why did they stop doing that flavor? A lot of the summer flavors, it's actually a summer event. It's usually to test out what is it that the audience likes, what was the result, what was the velocity, blah blah blah. Then once we test that, then we decide if we have capacity as a company to actually make it a full-time 52-week SKU. And the same thing you need to be doing it for your business, especially because you don't have the budget to risk. Like, you can't take too many risks. You just can't. You have to be very, very methodical with the investments that you're making in your business, especially as a small business owner. Strategies for building an audience organically. Thank you guys for asking me this question. I love doing live Q&As. Strategies for building an audience organically without too much ad spend. Melissa, that starts with your marketing and your messaging. That really, really starts with your marketing and your messaging. And why do I say this? It sounds very simplistic, but it's the messaging that will resonate with an audience. And so when it resonates with an audience, depending on the action they take, I'm going to assume social media right now, super easy because that's where we are right now. If you put content that speaks to your audience based on the fears, the frustrations, the wants, and the desires that you know, it will resonate with a few people that you have. Once it resonates with a few people that you have, it becomes sticky content. And once it becomes sticky content, what happens? People like, people comment. When people like, people comment, it gets a lot of traction from the algorithm that we all have to navigate right now. And then you get it eventually finds itself in the explore tab, and the reach now becomes easy. When the reach becomes very easy, many people come to you. That's that's strategy number one. That's in reference to creating sticky content. If you're trying to create brand credibility, this is content that establishes credibility and builds trust. This is now where you're talking about, I'm assuming you're in fashion. Please remind me, Melissa. Like, what is it about the fashion clothing that you have that actually makes it like dope? Is it A, when you put it in the washing machine, the color doesn't change? Is it B, like it's a timeless piece that will forever be timeless no matter the trends. Now start putting what is the benefit of that piece that you're selling. Now start putting content that establishes credibility. What that does is people share with it, people share, people save, and it's a share and save. So when the share and save happen, it gets to another to a bigger audience. Do that for a period of time. Then what when you do that consistently, go back and look at the content that did very well and repurpose the exact same thing. That is how you create I mean software now. Okay, I was thinking we were talking about the brand that I thought. Anyway, now do that for your content, and once you've done it for a period of time, repurpose what it was constantly doing well, but and at the same time observe the themes that people are resonating with and put more of that. Organic reach is a compounding effect. It's just it compounds, it compounds, it compounds, and you have to be willing to do this consistently. That's strategy number one if you're doing on social. Strategy number two would be think about who could you partner with that is complementary. Could be another emerging small brand. Who could you partner with that can complement what you're selling? Hear me, I'm not saying influencer. Why? Because influencer is now getting a little messy. People want to be paid, they want to be paid, but they're not delivering upon their requirements. It's just getting a little messy. And now I want you to think about who can I partner with that is complementary. Think about if you're selling a piece of clothing, it's a dress, it's fashion. More likely, a complementary product would be accessories. Who could you do an event with, or do a box like a summer box in a collection and share with each other? Just do this over and over again, and then that eventually, once you've dialed in that strategy organically, then you can add in some paid ads. It's actually the simple stuff done well that allows you to scale. It's the simple stuff done well that allows you to scale. And if you actually want to get a very good understanding of this, go into my podcast, the Product Entrepreneur Podcast, and listen to the episode where I interviewed Ryan. And it was the episode that's called Doing Business Internationally. He runs an 8-figure, going to 9-figure beauty brand company. And he said when his dad was running the company, they had plateaued for about 10 to 15 years. And when he and the brother stepped in, they stripped away everything and just focused on very, very few things. They streamlined their marketing, streamlined their pricing, streamlined their product assortment, streamlined their operations, and then they got to next level. So that's another way of listening. That's another way. That's a podcast for you to go and listen to if you want to understand that more. And with that, I am done today. Just to wrap up, what's the one foundational thing that creates a scalable brand? Actually, I said two. The first thing I said was really staying in the energy of winning, because once you stay in the energy of winning, you're able to create another result. And secondly, it's really thinking about distinction. And why I really emphasized on distinction instead of differentiation is because when you focus on distinction, you're really relying on the power inside of you. And when you start relying on the power inside of you, you're taking radical responsibility for your result, and you're not letting blame get the better of you. And with that, thank you, my friends. Thank you for joining me today. I will be here next week as well on Monday doing another training. And if you're brand new here, just go to my podcast, a ton of nuggets. And if you actually want to have a conversation with me, just slide into my DM. I'm just going to use that. Slide into my DM. And if you know anybody who would find a ton of value from this episode, please share. Totally appreciate. That's the only thing I'm asking. Just share this live with another product-based entrepreneur, and it will help me so much. Have a good time. Bye-bye.